Today I want to talk about Henry To'oTo'o and all that's coming up after the bumper.
Don't be cornering me. Hold up. Time. You gotta help me with that corner shit.
What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. Consider hitting the like and subscribe button because I upload a video every single day. It's always college football related, sports related. We have a good time. Today I want to talk about former Tennessee linebacker Henry To'oTo'o, who has announced his commitment to transfer to the University of Alabama. This is a tremendous get for Nick Saban and Pete Golding, and I think a just glove fit when we're talking about player and scheme, because many of you will know that Alabama really wanted To'oTo'o in the 2019 class coming out of De La Salle. He signs with Tennessee when Jeremy Pruitt is still head coach, and Jeremy Pruitt had run a similar scheme to the one that Pete Golding is running for, and we all know about the ties to Alabama there. The other thing I thought was most interesting about this is that To'oTo'o has been wildly productive in 22 games in his first 2 years as a player. 72 tackles in 2019 and 76 tackles in 2020, including 10 tackles for loss in 2020. Was an all-SEC caliber performer for me, and I think next to Christian Harris, those dudes are about to get after it like kid and play. Like, that's an elite inside linebacking core. Then add to that guys like Will Allen and, my goodness, Drew Sanders. And then on the outside, Josh Jobe, maybe Kool-Aid McKinstry with Malachi Moore in the middle, but you can move Malachi Moore out or Ryan Branch out. You got lots of options over there with Jordan Battle over the top. This is also not devastating, but just not what you want if you're an Ohio State fan, because you wanted Henry To'oTo'o, especially after losing Tuf Borland, Justin Hilliard, Pete Werner, and Baron Browning, right? Basically your four starting linebackers. Now, you got Taraja Mitchell and some other really dope linebackers there, so I don't know that you miss them and miss him in the form of talent. You miss him in the form of experience. And I'm sure Al Washington would have loved to have had that dude in his linebacking core, but it is what it is. But one of the things that I noticed just going through the transfer portal here of late is just how stacked the SEC has become through the portal. Like, we had lots of coaches going, I don't like the transfer portal because it feels like I'm going to develop a kid and then he's going to transfer somewhere else. Well, I say if you're developing the kid, then he's probably playing and he's not actually going to transfer anywhere else because he's playing. But at a place like, say, Ohio State, Mookie Cooper wasn't going to play, right? Wasn't playing. And then you look at that wide receiver depth chart and that wide receiver room, and the question I had in January is, how are you going to keep all these dudes happy? And we've already seen Cooper transfers to Missouri, right? Jameson Williams waits till after spring ball to announce his transfer commitment to Alabama. So that's two Ohio State wide receivers that have joined SEC schools, one in the East, one in the West. Then you look and see Clemson linebacker Mike Jones, who was getting some run at Clemson, has transferred to LSU, right? He's going to be next to Damon Clark. They ought to be pretty decent. Then you keep going down the list, right? Clemson running back DeMarcus Bowman transfers to Florida. Now, it's not because of lack of playing time, it's because he wants to get closer to home, but still, it's the same. He transferred to an SEC school. It ain't like he transferred to Georgia Tech. You know what I'm saying? Like, that all matters. And you continue to look at just how this has gone, and the SEC is getting that much more talented. And it's really interesting to look like, for instance, at Texas, Juwan Mitchell decides to transfer out to Tennessee. He's going to probably fill that void that is left by Henry To'oTo'o, right? So there is an argument here that the SEC is not only rich, but it is getting richer by the day. And then take into account Alabama has 29 new faces that are going to be on the roster come August. That's after a record-setting 2021 recruiting class, right? And then you were able to add dudes into the portal after watching 10 of your guys get drafted this year. Like, it's them in Ohio State this year. And it feels like the second team at Alabama might be a top 25 team. I don't think they're a top 10 team because you got to be real good experience-wise. But with talent, yeah, you could see it. Because I'm looking at that quarterback depth chart. And Jalen Milroe is a dude. And he's probably not going to see the field for at least 2 years, if that, right? So we'll see what happens with Milroe. And then, you look around and you see how the Pac-12 has actually beefed itself up a little bit going into the Big 12. Notably, Charlie Brewer, TJ Pledger, Jaquindon Jackson all transferred to Utah. Then add in there Malcolm Epps, Keontae Ingram, Xavier Alford, all transferred to USC. Then you could say that the Big 12 got a little bit in Tyler Shuck, who was starting most of the year for Oregon, transferring to Texas Tech, but I don't really view it in that way. We'll see what Steve Sarkisian is able to do down in Texas, because I think that's going to have a lot to say about how strong the Big 12 is. But the ACC also got stronger. Mackenzie Milton transferring in from Central Florida to Florida State. Jermaine Johnson transferring in from Georgia to Florida State. Andrew Parchment, who I thought was one of the better wide receivers that nobody talked about in the Big 12 coming out of Kansas, transfers to Florida State. The ACC, the SEC, the Pac-12 have gotten that much better. And what's really interesting when I pointed out all those dudes to you about transferring is that those were playoff teams. Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, right? Alabama lost Ben Davis to Texas. Cool. I want to put that out there, right? We all knew about that, but also Texas is probably in their feelings a little bit about, hey, RJ, we also went and poached Alabama. Okay, sort of. I'll let you have that, but we'll see what you're going to do in your first year with Pete Kwiatkowski as the DC and whether he can develop the kind of talent that he was developing at Washington, because that's what I'm also really interested to see. Is it Jimmy Lake or is it Pete Kwiatkowski, or is it both of them together, which we might never know unless we see them together again? You have lots of moving and shaking going on, and the reason you do is, of course, the immediate transfer rule. You can transfer one time any school you want without exception. You just got to let it be known before July 1, because jockeying after July 1, yeah, I understand how that can be a problem. But I don't think that this is going to be the last time that we hear about a player transferring of a name, right? I think Eric Gilbert staying in at LSU was also tremendous for LSU, but also like he was going to stay in the SEC. And when Henry To'oTo'o's father talked with Bama Online, one of the things that he had said is, I know from talking to him that he wants to stay in the SEC. And I was thinking, well, there ain't that many places for him to go then if he wants to play for championships, right? There was LSU had picked up Mike Jones, right? It's Alabama where he ended up going. There was Georgia, who I thought if they made a run at him might have had a shot, especially with Monty Rice going to the NFL as he did. But outside of that, when you talk about developing defensive talent and put him in the first round of the draft, which is exactly what that dude wants in his draft eligible year, you're going to go to Alabama. So shout out to Nick Saban and Pete Golding. But, you know, Nick Saban is one of the GOAT recruiters of all time. As a matter of fact, I put out this top 5 list on the number 1 ranked show's Twitter account and IG account. You go check out of what I think of as the 5 best recruiters of all time. And Nick Saban is obviously on the list. And I'm actually just here for all the folks that say that I snubbed their guy. All right, that's it for me. Deuces.